we're good.
Okay. So we'll officially start our landscape committee meeting tonight. This is the fourth quarter meeting. So congratulations everyone for making it just about a year. Actually a full year from when CPM started. So this is our first time including Zoom. So do we know if anyone is on right now? Speaking of no one, except for the recording.
What are we?
Well, you plus nobody on Zoom.
You're nobody two, nobody one is.
Nobody from the network's tuning in?
I've been roll call here. So the hope is that this becomes an easy thing to include in all meetings, so that anyone who wants to participate or join in can now actually join the conversation. And you know, the way we would have done it, and I'll just say it for recording purposes, is that we'll go through our normal agenda and we'll still save sort of the Q&A for the end. But that doesn't mean you guys as members can't interject and ask questions as we're on a certain topic. But for Zoom participants, unless it is a member and they're particularly working on something with us, we'll save it toward the end, and Courtney or whoever's moderating will actually bring in one person per question or whatever it is. So we're going to get started. I'll do committee member roll call. So right now we got myself, Tony, Joe, Bruce, Paula, and our finance committee chair, Larry. And Courtney is here assisting us tonight too. So thank you all for being here on a rainy day. We'll go into open items, and we got a lot of different topics to cover. So we'll start with the big one, which is CPM, our landscape maintenance vendor, and they recently did their Q&A with us, our annual vendor Q&A. I think we should do those once a year for all major vendors. If anything, just to remind people who is working with us on our property. And we can do that as also a check and balances to let people ask questions that have kind of built up over time. I thought it was a really great Q&A. You know, it had the three of them, Shane, Nelson, and Eliseo, and all of them did a great job presenting sort of their position and role in the company, answered a lot of questions, gave us some feedback on things that we can maybe work on, improve upon, like presenting the schedule in a more accessible way. We want to still get out the Reflector system for opting out, so that that communication is clear and people know how to opt out and what they can opt out of. So all of it was really, I think, productive and positive. Then the following day, and actually it was the Tuesday that week, we got an email from Shane. So all of you guys are aware of this. It was brought to our attention by Shane that CPM has been losing money with our community since day one. They initially chalked it up as kind of a learning curve, but found that they were not able to sort of make up the difference over time. And so in a very transparent way, Shane came to us and explained to us exactly what was happening. Asked if we could have an in-person conversation. We set up that meeting for the following morning after the Q&A. Just to kind of condense the timeline a little bit, we sat down and had a great meeting where we, you know, very openly talked from both sides what we wanted out of this, and ultimately we determined we want to continue to build on the relationship that has been so beneficial for our community and landscaping. It was understood and even showed us the actual numbers, where the challenge was, and gave us some suggestions on how we can move forward. So that ended up turning into a contract addendum, which has not been ratified or signed or anything like that. But as a committee, we submitted our recommendation to the board, and now it is with them to make that final decision. But if I didn't already mention, our recommendation was to continue with CPM with the raise, which was, I think, in total 8.5%,
Yeah.
right? And we were to bring down our total mows in a year from 40 to 36, which we deemed was gonna work for our community, because that's exactly what we did this first year with them, and it worked. And they still believe it will work moving forward in the next 2 years. We were also able to negotiate down the hours on site at LSAO, which that kind of helped shave off some of the numbers. And then we did some other little things with like moving coconut tree trimming into actual tree trimming as a whole. So that's going into the tree trimming line item, and it's getting out of CPM. So we did things like that, and where we landed, we were very happy. We felt that this was the best possible outcome for what was going on, and so we can move forward with them. That would be the best path to take, and that's what we left it with the board. So
May I think probably clarification too for people is that CPM was gonna get a 3.5% increase in year 2 anyway, so this is really a net increase of only 5%.
yes, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, 3%, but close enough.
Well, whether you're
Yeah.
So, and those details will be presented later once this is all sort of like discussed by the board, and the board can then present to the community, you know, kind of their decision. I can also share all of that too, if anyone has any questions on it.
Will this result in a raising of our utility fee?
That's another thing. I don't have that answer because I don't know what's being worked on as a whole. So that's gonna come up, I think, in the next meeting, where it's gonna be the next board meeting, the 24th, and there's also gonna be kind of a review of the reserve study. I don't know if the budget is gonna be discussed then as well, is it?
Not quite yet, I mean, it will lead into talks about the budget inevitably, because it is about the reserves, which does affect it, but we'd be starting our first budget type workshops and presentations as we get into October.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a factor for sure in that conversation about our budget, about the reserve and things like that. But I don't know how it's gonna impact us. All I know is we worked down to the most minimal impact in the necessity of us being able to continue with them, but also them being happy and getting what was going to make sense for them to also be motivated and be able to continue with us. So we found a happy medium. Any other questions?
I saw what everyone else said about it, and I agree with everything on the comments that were made.
Yes, yeah,
I saw, I read it.
yeah, and so I just thank you for saying that, because this was definitely a community effort, and the fact that I put it on you guys to review everything that I had kind of collected as information through the conversation, through the data, and you all reviewed that and gave me your feedback, and we all were aligned, which is really what a community should be able to do. So I'm very happy with you all. Yeah, exactly. So everybody was in that email thread, so it was great. All right, so let's move on. Anyone else, any other thoughts on that particular subject? Okay. So we have a date for tree trimming, common area tree trimming. That is going to be on this Friday. Is the start date. That's with the arborist for CPM, which is why it's in the CPM section. The arborist's name is Jody, so he's ready to mobilize on Friday, pending weather. You know, this is not really looking great for, you know, a lot of landscaping stuff, but that's the goal. If not this Friday, the goal really is to get it done before the holiday lights go up. And I'll get into that, but he believes that he will absolutely be able to accomplish that task, so that we're not going to have a conflict with putting those lights up on the sort of entryway for these. Okay, then we have fall, winter seasonal flower installation that we are going to be working out the final details, hopefully with Nelson tomorrow. We have on the table here just a couple of samples of some of the colors and types. Impatiens and sun patience were the recommended types of flowers. The colors are really limited to sort of the range of pinks, purples, red for like the winter season, kind of holiday season, and then there's some variations of like orange hues within like kind of the pinks and purples. So our goal is to come up with color combinations for all the major entryways that create a sense of variety. So each entryway has its own unique look and color scheme. But also each one looks independently good and it just kind of brightens up the look of our community. And appreciate the help that we get on sort of making these decisions, because it's very much opinion based, but I believe just based on what we did with like kind of the spring and summer flowers, we have a good idea of what is simple and works and still really works nice. I think what was out there, actually was pretty good, especially in the interior. So, any questions on that? Okay. And I think for additional landscaping projects, put that in there because there are some questions about specific areas that maybe were preserved or landscaping tract. Courtney, this was the kind of thing I was trying to get clarity on, but I know that we had had a few discussions with them, even the day that they did the Q&A about some of those areas. Do we know if that's all been worked out, if we going to use CPM to kind of clean up some of the areas?
So we can, anything that's landscape track, we could use any landscape we wanted to, so it would obviously be our first choice if possible. Jody's supposed to meet with me at least about Longsford Estates, we could show them other areas too, because I don't think their on-site team will be able to handle how the growth in some of those areas. But yes, they could do it because it's not preserving out. Honestly, I don't think Drew would be interested in doing it, because he hasn't wanted to get too involved with other types of landscaping stuff outside of his domain of just treating weeds, audits, and
Yeah. Okay, cool. Alright, service schedule accessibility, so this came up, mostly because we have a new platform that we're still getting familiar with, which is Town Square. You guys, have you called in to use the portal or you haven't released yet?
I haven't. I was wondering about how much the community is using.
more and more. So I'm getting more and more work orders through there. I'm getting more and more, just general activity, because I can see like if someone submits something, I can see how many people are looking at their emails, so it's going up.
Yeah.
More people are starting to look at it.
That's good, and I think we just, continue to kind of repost the reminder of where you can register and stuff. I thought that helped. Initially, a lot of people, even in emails and stuff, but yeah, Town Square, if you haven't registered and you're watching this, get registered so that you can access everything that's going on about our community, place your work orders through there, and the app is actually gonna make life a lot easier for a lot of people who never had access to placing work orders, reserving the clubhouse, or even RSVP for events. You can do it by basically pressing a few buttons on your phone. So, we want to make sure that the calendar for all different services is accessible. So Courtney and I talked about this. So can you help explain where exactly in the portal people can find this?
Yes, it's under the events and activities section, and then if you click on, because the resident portal looks a little different than mine, but I think it looks close enough that I can tell you. So if you click on like the events, it shows a list, even on the app, of upcoming events for September. And that's where I go through and add them all. Unfortunately, with like landscaping services, I'm gonna have to add as an event, so you have the option to RSVP, just ignore that. You don't need to RSVP for mowing and things, but you'll see a listing of anything upcoming in that month. And then if you go scroll over to the next month, like October, you'd see anything coming up in October, so you would see that list that way. And that's where you would RSVP to our actual social events, though, so you would see like the September wine tasting, and then it has an option right there, it says RSVP on there. That you should be able to click on very easily and fill in any extra people you have coming with you, how many, names, whatever section you give you to fill out, because we can kind of customize that per event with comments. But it should be, I think, right under there, pretty straightforward once you get in there.
Okay. Okay, cool. And then the opt-out reflector system, we are working on that right now. So, we should be able to get something out to the community, by next week at least, that is going to explain how you can opt out from CPM services. There will be another one that also talks about opting out for coastal, but that one's much simpler. It's kind of like all in or all out. But the reflectors are gonna help sort of the company and the maintenance, architects actually know or identify like which homes, have what and don't. Okay, so that's it, yeah. Any questions on that? No? All right, let's move on to coastal pest control. So they also were here that same night for their annual vendor Q&A. Jim, I thought, did a great job representing himself and his company. My biggest takeaway with Jim every time is just, brilliant. He really knows his work very well. And he's so confident, but also, he cares about the results and he cares about customer service. And that's why we hired them, and we're still very happy with them. And, a lot of the stuff that we're gonna see with them is gonna be, visible over a long period of time. But, I got on just our chat on Facebook, a question about weeds on turf. Work order was placed. I know for a fact that work order is gonna go off to coastal. They're gonna attend to it immediately, and next time they're on site or whenever they're attending work orders, they will visit that home and they'll take care of it. So he even brought to our attention kind of like an outbreak with clover, and they were right on top of it. So it's stuff like that that kind of helps build confidence in a vendor, and that's what I got out of the Q&A. Does anyone have thoughts on that particular meeting?
Well, I was gonna ask you a question. Looking back on the property, kind of, and they cut a bunch of stuff. Obviously, basic kind of crap, but, they cut it down. But now the stuff is dead vegetation. And what the question was, will that create a problem for wildfires? And maybe take that and remove that.
So I think you might be talking about preserves in the area. Yeah.
So it should decompose pretty quickly, because we have that, you're seeing it on the edges, 'cause that's your view, but we have it throughout the whole preserve, and especially now because we're in that wet season with as wet and damp as everything is. By the time it finally dries out, it's gonna decompose so fast right now because it is staying so wet. So they're not too super concerned about the wildfire risk right now, because especially in that rainy season. If residents want to, they can reach out to me, because we have, depending on what it is, if you're worried about a particular pile of things, we've gotten permission if you wanna have, pay someone to remove it or remove it yourself within X number of feet, but they will limit how far you can go in and remove stuff, because we do have to leave the dead stuff that's a habitat for the wildlife, and that's why they do leave it there, because it is a habitat for the bugs, which feed the birds and all the other little animals and critters that are back there. So we do have to leave most of it, but sometimes, depending on the situation, we could get permission to have, you would have to either do it yourself or hire CPM or another landscaper to just do a little bit if it's really a concern for you. But we can take a look at it. But I'm not too concerned, especially with how wet everything's been. That stuff's gonna decompose really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a major problem to me, but I'm just thinking about that, and I'm just wondering how they.
Yeah, most of that stuff is at herbaceous growth. It's like big weeds basically that turn into like little mini trees that will decompose pretty quickly. Now, if you had things like bamboo or things that are maybe more water resistant, that's when we can maybe make an exception if you're worried it's not going to decompose. So we just have to take that on a one-on-one basis. So.
Yeah. And it's never hurts to place a work order with a photo and just address your concern and say, hey, I have a question about this. Courtney will be able to identify based on your photo and the submission, who's the vendor that would be best to reach out to. And from my experience so far, each vendor will get that and provide an actual expert answer. Yeah. So, and that goes for everyone, not just you.
Yeah, there's been a few, and Drew's been very quick to get back to us each time when a resident was concerned about something they saw with the preserve work that was done.
Yeah, I forget, because I think mine fell through the cracks.
Good. Okay.
You definitely, you can tell they really made a dent in it. Good.
Yeah, so with coastal pest control, so just as a quick reminder for some, because I've actually heard recently some people are still unaware, we do get interior service with coastal pest control. So if you're seeing like ants, silverfish or something like inside your home, and you want them to come out and take care of that, they will do that inside of our contract with them. So yes, inside. Now, typically you don't need interior when exterior is being done regularly, and done properly. A lot of times interior, I guess, can kind of be brought in, you know, whether it's from shoes or objects.
Go under the garage door, maybe?
Possibly, you know, like landscapers might maybe blow something in there, which, you know, CPM talked about, that's against their protocols. They're always trying to train multiple times not to blow towards the garage doors, which, you know, stuff happens. But yes, interior service is available, and all you have to do is place a work order, and they'll schedule it. Yeah, so the opt-out system with them is all in, all out, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so if somebody wants to opt out from coastal pest control for any reason, all you have to do is email Courtney or place a work order saying, I want to opt out of pest control services with coastal. But is it, like, I think there's fertilization and it's pest weed, right?
Yeah, so you could pick between those two, because they're different months usually, they're not doing them all at the same time. But the reason you have to like opt in or out of like all the pest control, because they can't pick and choose, they're mixing all their chemicals in a batch kind of situation.
Right.
But yes, they have worked with us before if someone doesn't want fertilization versus the pest control, because it is done typically on different trips, service trips.
Yeah, so there's a little distinction there, but we'll make sure that people are aware of exactly what it is.
You don't often that in your car, right?
Correct. Yeah. Okay, same with the service schedule, it all will be available, so once these vendors let us know what their service schedule is for the following month, or whenever, Courtney goes ahead and makes an event for that, and you can see it inside of the app or the portal.
Dan, how often do they do the, pest control, per house, basically? Every 6 months, once?
No, it's every other month basically, because they're alternating really, other than unless there's an issue, like sometimes they'll do the weeds, like when they found the clover, they were doing a pest control treatment when they found it, but then went back and did the clover as well. So sometimes they might make adjustments, like the ants, for instance, if they're out here doing fertilization, they see a lot of ants, they might just go ahead and also do the ant treatment because they're seeing a ton of mounds. But typically they're alternating months.
And that's, sorry, what were you saying?
Are they doing it, only if they see something, or are they doing it routinely?
No, routinely, they're alternating what they're doing, but if they see a problem, even if it's not on their month to do the treatment, they're gonna address it. The ant piles are the easiest I could pick out because that's very visible that they see that those are there. And they would see a widespread, and then the weeds are the other thing that they see widespread, that they might add in, like, well, this past treatment was supposed to be pest control treatment, but they saw the clover issue and they started treating that as well.
On the pest control, are they doing just your entire grass area, basically?
Yeah, the grass in the perimeter of your home.
Actually,
doing
the
the
whole community, it's all complete turf.
All turf?
Yeah, yes, they're doing everything, I mean, Jim was saying it's everywhere.
It's fantastic, because that service was never part of the landscaping committee jurisdiction.
Yeah, I'm sure, only been here like 4 or 5 years. But yeah, and the other thing that Jim mentioned too is that they don't like do like, you know, a lot of sort of add-ons or extra sort of costs, you know, if they're not getting the job done or something needs to be taken care of, we just take care of it, which is really cool with that too. So, all right, that's coastal pest control. Let's move on to Sullivan Pump and Electric. So they are our vendor for our pump house and our pump. And so as of right now, we have a couple of repairs that need to happen. One is regarding a Rainbird device that communicates to the main, what would be control panel
Yeah.
for the pump.
Yeah.
And the other is a check valve for that comes from the intake valve of our main lake here into the pump. And that valve is just old and sort of deteriorated, so it needs to be replaced completely. So we try to get the bigger problem, which is the communication device, taken care of. But there was a hiccup with Rainbird and Sullivan getting the proper device or it making its actual connection the way it was supposed to. they're now working with Rainbird to try and resolve that and get us either the right device or get a better understanding of what the issue is. Once that's complete, they'll also do the check valve, and then we should be good with our pump. So we've been lucky so far because of the weather. Really don't have
Nature
irrigation.
supplemented for us.
Yeah, but yeah, we haven't had irrigation, but we've had rain. So that's good, but, one thing, and I mentioned this before, is like, it does suck, because I feel a little vulnerable with this particular situation in our irrigation. And we're gonna talk more about irrigation, because Larry and I had a meeting with Doug Reed, but, to not have irrigation and to rely on weather at this point is not what we want. So the hope is by the end of this week, we have an idea of exactly when they're gonna be back on site and this will get resolved. And if not, we'll push to get it resolved the following week, because we can't push it out much further than that.
Is the check valve working? It's just not working, functioning well?
It's,
No.
yeah, it doesn't, it's letting, basically what the check valve does, it's letting water escape, and we have the pumps off for long term, we lose our prime, and it has to be reprimed every time. It doesn't stop the operation as long as we're keeping the pump continuously on and running, everything's good, it doesn't affect anything, but it's those moments when we turn things off, like right now, when we get the pump up, they're gonna have to reprime it because it's been sitting so long off, that water, it's not holding that water in there. So we have the intake valve holding the water in the pumps on one side, but then this on the lake side is where that one's at, it's in the lake, so diver, they have to go in, like actually go into the lake to fix it, that's letting water out, and so we're just not keeping that prime. So it doesn't stop us while we're moving, just, it's frustrating when we have irrigation on, like this week, if we had irrigation working, we had the irrigation on rain delay, we could have turned the pumps off, but we can't right now because we know we could lose that prime.
Yeah, so another item on there for pump is just the idea of budgeting for a new pump. This is inside the conversation, bigger conversation that's going on about our reserve study and also looking at the 2025 budget. So this is brought to our attention by Doug Reed, who also did his own vendor Q&A, and we asked the question, like, what is something like that going to cost? And we threw out a rough number of about $100,000, I think is what it was, and he confirmed that with Larry. So that's rough in the sense that we probably want to get an official quote, and you look at what like that next generation pump would be. And once we have that, we can use that as sort of like the gold number for making adjustments inside of the reserve if it needs to be made, or however we're going to save for that. But whatever that timeline is, we want to be well aware of that, because we don't want to wait until something really goes wrong with the pump and it's screwed. So make sure that was something to bring up in this conversation. But as of right now, we have a rough number from somebody who understands that world, and we'll talk more about things we can do in the interim to sort of offset some of the costs and make sure that we're still protecting the longevity of our system. All right, I'm gonna move on to Advanced Restoration Ecology. That is our preserve cleanup and maintenance company. So Drew Gatewood is the kind of owner and lead on all preserve stuff, and he is just about complete with the whole 2024 cleanup project. There have been delays at the very end with the weather, but he's just about done. According to him, said like a few areas left over.
So he wants to respray phase 3, that last section they did, because all of that, like especially now with all the radar being regrowing really quickly, so he wanted to respray that. The weather hasn't helped, he can't spray when it's raining like this.
Yeah.
But once he's done with that, we can go ahead and get it scheduled, and I know he said Lindy was on vacation, so when she's back next week, even if it's a little bit out, we can at least get it scheduled. But we're basically done with the cleanup. which is-
Yes. And that's great that he would do that to ensure that
Yes.
when the inspection is done, we're in compliance. And that was what Drew stood by when we first talked, and is that, he knows Lindy, he knows the level at which she would inspect the property, so he's gonna go the distance, and he's gonna go further than what would be expected to make sure that we are actually going to be in compliance. That's our goal with the cleanup. Then after that is all good, we're in compliance, we get that confirmation, he goes into quarterly maintenance, for, keeping down the invasives in our preserve. And that's what we worked out with him. So, pretty straightforward.
Did they have to chop many trees down or what?
Well, they chopped a lot of things, yeah, there's a lot of stuff cut and dead, like especially if you ever drove through or walked through the preserve, like after they had treated there, you can see like dead vines everywhere, because they cut all those and sprayed them. I mean, it looks like the whole area was dead, like within a couple first few days of their treatment, within that first week, but then it does start to decompose really fast, as leaves fall down, and the green growth comes up pretty quickly. But they did do a ton of work back there.
That's the view from the street, and this is picture before they did it. You can pretty much seal down, and most of that's gone now.
Yeah, so,
Is there anything found that was of interest?
No, I think everything was expected, they kind of knew it was gonna be bad, it was rough because we were going into rainy season when they were doing the treatment, especially towards the end of it, because everything was really high water that they were working in, so I think it took them a little bit longer than they would have liked. But it was, I think, they knew it was gonna be pretty overgrown, unfortunately, when they went in there, they knew it was gonna be a lot of work, and there was a ton of stuff that was cut down. Or sprayed.
I think for me, like, we took a tour with Dan and, not Dan, Drew, Dan was with us. And we saw what I think was where the fire was area,
Yeah.
right? So it was this big kind of open area, it's like kind of like a dry plain. And it was just dry and open and dead. And he said that, you know, when it rains, that's gonna be filled up, it would be up to like your chest or shoulders. Like, it's just crazy what happens with rain in our preserve. So he was saying like it was a good time to kind of like be there now, although he knew what was about to happen. So I don't think he was even gonna be in that area, so his whole plan was shifting around the weather. But I saw it with my own eyes, and he explained to me, I'm like, yeah, he's got his own challenges to deal with out there beyond just the standard invasives. So, yeah, but I think he's done a really good job, and he did a great job explaining exactly like where he was gonna be and what was being done, pointed out all the invasives. As we were going along. So, yeah, I'm excited to kind of get that, final thumbs up that we're complete, and then we're in compliance, because that's a big project for us.
How often do they, how often do you have to be in compliance? Once every year or?
No, we would maintain compliance at this point going forward. He'll do quarterly maintenance every quarter. He'll be in every part of the preserve, maintaining what he's already done, keeping control, especially of that like weedy, herbaceous, those little plants that will try to pop up and turn into bigger trees and bigger issues. But from here on out, we will maintain the compliance and just keep working on reducing our percentage of invasives. And we'll have enough to hit the compliance mark, but he wants to keep on lowering that number as we go in our quarterly maintenance. That one section, that last section of along the trench.
Where we saw like the potato lines. Yeah,
We're gonna be talking to him about that when we go out, because that's not technically preserved, so it'd be an extra thing. And yeah, that one's not, believe it or not, because the preserve starts like where Larry's house is, like in the back there. But most of that is like a waterway tract, there's like it's considered like one of our lake areas almost, like it's waterway tract, and then a landscape tract. So we're gonna ask him if he could do that, that's a little bit different than some of the other landscape tracts, we could get CPM in there technically, because it's not a preserve, so we have anyone do it. But we are gonna ask him about when we do the walk there, we asked him if he could go over that with us and walk that area with us. Because those pine trees will be completely, they will be.
well, he's definitely the guy, so, yeah, I think once sort of the actual preserve job is done, the walkthrough, we can bring his attention to it and then get an estimate.
Yeah, and he would be interested in doing that, we've already talked to him a little bit, potato vine, because he's okay with doing the exotic, it's the other stuff where we have to do trimming, that he doesn't have the manpower to handle that sort of landscape track project.
Right. And you already brought attention to the last point on here, which is, if, you know, it's preserve related, so encroaching preserve, and you're seeing debris, you can absolutely place a work order. You know, it depends on the situation of the case, but like, you know, you can get, that cleared out, depending on where it is, if it's on a property, you can actually clear it out, there's no problem, but, you know, placing work order kind of helps to identify that and get the right vendor to assist.
It's actually on the preserve property.
So if it's on preserved property, you know, that's where Courtney was mentioning that, you know, there are some leniencies, but we have to communicate to the right authorities before doing that, which is how we want to do this. Okay, moving on to the lake doctors. All right, so they are our newest vendor that we onboarded. Actually, that's not true. We got some new vendors for smaller projects, but lake doctors being kind of, regular maintenance. Yeah, they started with us, was 3 months ago now,
Yeah,
and, I wanna let you speak to kind of your experience recently with them, because I think it was.
oh, it's night and day, yeah, so Lake Doctors has been great, they did that first treatment for us back in really the beginning of summer at this point. Where they were still kind of assessing, we had some overlap with what the other vendor had done, with what Solitude had done. But this was their first real visit after the summer heat had really hit, they've been, hot, because they're only doing every other month treatment, so it had been really hot already, we had algae. And they were here all day, they were out from like 8 o'clock in the morning, maybe a little bit before, because it was before I got here, until after lunchtime, and even then they only left because it was starting to rain on them, they spent a ton of time. Previous vendor that had been here would be in and out in like an hour, and be done with all lights in an hour, they were here for, at least 4 hours, and then they even came back the next day because the rain had stopped them from spraying. So they had to come back, they checked in with George when they got here, they checked in with him multiple times throughout the day, they came in at the end of the day to let me know that they weren't done, what they had treated, what they hadn't finished. That they were gonna be coming back the next day, they sent us the reports, within probably an hour of them leaving here, we got the reports from them, from their office. It's just a night and day kind of situation, they're communicating everything to us, and even showing George what they did and bringing them out, making sure someone on site knows that they were here and has gotten the communication from them that we really wanted. So it was just, can't say enough, they were great to work with, they treated all the lakes for algae and for the grasses, the shoreline grasses, that grass that grows into the littorals that shouldn't be there. So, and then from now on, what we could expect to see, I mean, now it's been a little while since their treatment, but when they treat that, especially when we have an algae outbreak, you're gonna see it turn brown, float to the top, and then it's gotta decompose and go back to the bottom. And so that's kind of the time frame. They don't physically remove it, it's gotta die off and sink back down. But that's just to be expected with any kind of treatment. And so they are bi-monthly, and now that we're gonna be getting past the summer heat soon, we should see some improvement in the lakes.
Yeah.
Do they do that from shoreline, or do they get out in like a canoe or something like that and treat the middle of the lakes?
So, no, they were out with the shoreline, with their little gator, spraying everything into the lake, like spraying into it. I don't believe they were out here with the boat at all this time, but they do have them if they needed it, because they did mention that they might need it at some point for this bigger lake especially. Because it's so large, most of our lakes are small enough though that you could apply treatments, and it's gonna get dispersed, even like for the algae, it's gonna get dispersed when it's out there. Some of their target treating that wouldn't need to get dispersed through the water would be those grasses, but you don't get that from the shore anyway. So we don't have any situations where they're so far out really that they probably couldn't be treated. The only exception might be at some point if the lily pads start getting out of control again, you might need a boat at that point to get in and target those.
Right, and about those lily pads, you were saying that we could pick some of them, did they address some of the lily pads on some of the lakes, like the one over on Sullivan? Did they do anything this round or not yet?
Yeah, so I do think they treated some of those, I'll double check with them, but that was part of like the shoreline stuff that they were treating, because those can be, we want that more natural look, but they can get out of control, so it's just a matter of keeping them in check, where we still let some survive along the edges to be a habitat, but not letting them completely fill up our space.
Takes over against everything. Right?
Yeah.
So they do.
Yeah.
And Bruce, you're our lead member for lake maintenance.
Yeah, it seemed like they came out, they did a good job, they had that little, they had a cute little boat that they go out, and, the guy was very, accessible and reported back, just like you said, and he also, he had an opening to do an extra service because we had a complaint, and so he was addressing the complaint. And he just did it, and he addressed the complaint in his regular service, as I understand, and he's coming by every other month, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't want to get off schedule by having them come early, because it was so close to our next scheduled treatment anyway.
As far as that lake, I always wondered, in Silverwolf, that lake, as you go over that little bridge, that's a pretty lake, but it does have some.
So wait, I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking about what you're talking about, Silverwolf is not a lake that we treat.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Silverwolf's not a lake that we treat. So Silverwolf is preserved. I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about, 'cause there's another lake where like at the very entrance, we have some lily pads, and then by Longsford Stage, there's a few where we have some lily pad issues. Silverwolf's not actually like that little bridge area, I wasn't realizing what you're talking about, that's preserve area, the only thing you treat at Silverwolf is, that canal. That, where we have those potato vines, so that canal there, they spray the grasses, the littorals over there. If some pop up, like right now, it's already, it's gonna be wet, we might have some stuff popping up from the tree. But that is not actually something they're allowed to touch, that gets counted as preserve tree, and that just is what it is.
So if it gets overgrown, it gets overgrown.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not, even though it basically is like, it's not, it's like, I don't know what they would call it, what they would call that.
Wetland?
Yeah, it's more of a wetland kind of area, and I don't even think Drew would do anything in there, we could ask him, but I don't know that he would get into that section. We could ask Drew, that would be an interesting question to ask him, since it is technically all preserved type stuff.
Well, if it's preserved, it's probably something there.
Yeah, but I don't know about the lily pads. Cause he mostly focuses on those terrestrial type plants. And I know the lake company's not allowed to touch it, cause that was one of the questions we asked, like all the lake owners when they were coming in. We brought them over there, cause at first we thought that was one of our lakes. We weren't, cause we knew there's one on Silverwolf, we weren't 100% sure, but they're not even allowed to touch it, they're not licensed to touch it.
So you're saying that is not one of our nine?
No, that is not. Yeah, the Silverwolf one is that canal, weirdly enough, that little drainage ditch.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to ask.
Is it getting worse at the lily pad area?
In time it.
Oh, yeah, you can't see the water, really. Yeah, I, that one's covered.
Put it in here, but I want to, this should really be in kind of new business. But I want to start to set up our accountability checks with every vendor. To kind of get them on like autopilot to a degree where we're not always, having to check in with them on a regular basis. We can start to like go trust that they're doing their job, but we can always look to see like, are there any problems or issues? So with lake maintenance, I don't know what would make sense at this point, since they're brand new. We have to kind of give them kind of a window of time, 6 months to a year, but maybe it's, biannually that, we meet up with Phil or one of the maintenance techs and just kind of see like, how is everything going, I think having them as part of like the vendor Q&A would help too.
Yeah.
So we can kind of match those, but.
Well, they're super, available to us, so when they go out for their, just the bi-monthly treatments, it's just every couple, we wanna go out and just do a ride through. I don't see them having a problem with it at all, so we can just even do that, even if it's, once every 3 or 4 months, depending on what we're seeing going on.
Okay, cool. All right, let's move on. So Doug Reed, irrigation and wet checks. Okay, so I mentioned that he did this Q&A. The big topic here is, so myself and Larry met Doug Reed for lunch last week, and there was an opportunity for both of us to sort of kind of talk about the big picture of our system from an expert, and what are some things that we should be really considering and looking at besides these wet checks or besides pump maintenance. And one of the big takeaways was we have an old system, and a lot of the concerns have been regarding the wiring, or the electrical, like sort of surges that might be happening and causing controllers to surge out or whatever it is. But little things are happening, and he is having to repair and fix those things along the way, including that on top of the wet checks. So what we've learned is there's one thing that we can absolutely do if we can identify the way in which certain connections are being protected or made inside of our boxes, the control boxes. There are 2 ways that we've noticed so far. There's one that has this sort of like clear plastic container where the wires are very well protected inside of there. The other is more kind of like one of the little twist on ones that it allows the wires to be more exposed. And inside these boxes, it can be quite a mess, it can be just filled with dirt or sometimes water, right? So a lot of stuff being in there and these wires not being very well protected, a lot of issues can stem from that. The other one had to do with identifying if there is a grounding rod and where that grounding rod might be. And so we have a bit of a plan that we want to share with the committee, that it's going to be a little project in going throughout our neighborhood in teams, looking at every control box in the kind of right on the swale front lawns and looking inside and identifying, is there a ground rod, right? Can you see it? In the box or outside the box? And also, what do the connections look like for the wires? Larry, do you want to add anything to that?
If you want me to.
Please.
So, as Danny said, there's two kinds of connections in there, and there's two sets of wires. One is control wires, and one is the voltage that turns the thing on. And each one needs a different kind of connector. Each one of them needs something that has grease. So, when you start about the wire nuts, those are fine as long as they use proper ones. As long as they use what they're called dry nuts, they have grease in them, they're more expensive. What we found just looking at my box, I had a regular wire net, right? I got a silly number in my garage, but they're not designed for underwater, they're not designed for the ground. So my main focus for me with Doug is to try to understand more about the system. And people say, hey, we've got bad wire in there, we're having blowouts all the time, and we get surges. I'm wondering what's causing that, what are the complications? So that was really good. And so I think the thing he had suggested is let's do a survey of the system to see are the lines connected properly. A ground rod needs to be done every 8 decoders or every 500 feet. He goes, well, do we have them there? We not have them. And then so we went and looked at Larry Zoric's house. He had a grounding. We knew there would be a grounding rod there because he's at the end of the line, but it's inside the box, which is inappropriate. It should be 8 feet away, and they run a wire. We suspect all of our grounding rods are
During the box.
they're probably in the box, right?
I know, I'm at the end of the line, mine's in the box.
Yeah, so they're probably, that's better than not having them, but I think what we're trying to do is do a survey to try to understand what do we have, check it out, and then if we see that grounding rods are not properly established, or maybe there's one on the entire street, well, that's why we're getting surges through. And every time we gotta replace one of these, they're a few $100, the control, the decoders and surge arresters. So we can save ourselves a lot of money by doing it. Now, getting to the point here, Doug Reed can do that, but he's gonna charge us to do it. We thought, well, we do that, right? Why don't we just get people to go around, clear the boxes out, mark down what's there, take a look at the wiring and say, we'll show you what's supposed to be there, and if you want something's unusual, or it looks like there's a bad connection. So we'll do our survey, and then we'll start to make a plan on how to fix it. It doesn't still solve the wiring, that there's stranded wire inside that's not correctly insulated, but at least it gets us moving, and maybe we can start to save some.
Yes, yeah, it's a half step, but it's a good one for the fact that we do have that old system. So, and like I said, Doug would be a costly route to take care of all this, whereas we do this work and we have what Courtney's created is a spreadsheet broken up by streets. And actually like columns where we can kind of just check off what we're seeing as we're going. Broken up into teams like that, we can really tackle it, I think, pretty quickly. And we can choose a day where, maybe it's a little bit cooler, but maybe in the morning or in the afternoon, not in the middle of the day. But we can kind of choose our own path with that. And then our maintenance tech, George, can help us with, say, replacing or exchanging out those connectors. So we can just purchase those and then have our maintenance tech assist us with the actual changing out of the proper connections.
And even if you do it on Saturdays, which would be the most convenient day for everyone, George said he would be happy to come in on Saturdays when we're doing the surveys and go out there with some of the teams and be able, to show everyone what they're looking for and be one of the people out there marking boxes.
Yeah, so I will put out a separate email that is just on this topic to our committee. And so if we can get a good team together, find a Saturday or a Sunday morning, and we can kind of put that plan together, tackle it, I think we'll be way better off having all that information. It'll kind of be a foundation for us to like also know, where things are, you know, and we have a great list that came through the Rainbird system that we have. That identified like, you know, how many controllers there are on, you know, in certain zones. And what addresses are connected to those, so that's what Courtney was able to make her spreadsheet off of, so when we're doing it, we're gonna just have the actual home addresses. And then we'll say, yep, they have 2 boxes, you know, check, and that's kind of how it goes. So.
You're looking to get that done by 2024 or into the new year?
Yeah, we definitely want to do it this year. Probably the sooner the better, you know, just
Just having the information is gonna be better than not having information, so if we couldn't get it done, that's fine, but what we'd like to be able to do is get a sense of how big the project is, then we can start budgeting.
yeah,
Because we don't know what, I mean, we see information, and I think our community's been remarkably lax in keeping good records about the age of things, what we've got. And so I think we're just trying to get down to a decent baseline, so, yeah, faster is better, but there's no urgency to do it. Sooner than we can start to plan and start to prepare.
yeah, like it won't fix the system, but it could help, you know, offset more errors over time. So. We did something kind of like this, where we did like a tree counting day, is there anyone was involved in that? That was kind of fun, and we tackled that in a few hours, my daughter was even involved in that.
We should do it on a Saturday and then tie it to a social, so we always got the golf cart with the little trailer, we put the cooler in the back, and we just go house to house. And we do the survey and then we end up where it chooses. Mobile tailgate for control boxes, and then, yeah, the party ends at the house and you relax, and we do what we did the last time that Larry called us or something.
I like it.
A great time when we work out together. And a whole party.
Yeah, we can do it again if we want to do it that way, I think that's a fine way, I think it's gonna take more than just one Saturday.
Oh, I know, I'm just like,
It's gonna take this is gonna be a project.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the boxes have burnings, so they have to dig it out, be very careful.
yeah.
Undoubtedly, we're going to break something. Right? I mean, I think going into it, you know, you're gonna mess something up. If your irrigation system's already down, you know, then we just get it fixed and not have a lot of pain, but.
Just if someone has, you know, the other thing of doing it that will work, that won't do the damage as bad, is you just ask homeowners that if you see if somebody's using a water hose, and then if someone's got like a portable generator, you can put in a wet dry vac, and you just hydro out from there, just start, you know, filling it with water, suck it out, let out water, and you want these totally limp over wires, you know, because I know I'll do it with a shovel or something. You know, just hydro.
It's actually not a bad idea. You got a portable generator. It'll help us with some of the boxes that really need some work.
And what I was gonna say is, if there is a short. Now we're gonna find out,
We're not really looking for shorts. What we're really
what
looking
I'm
for
going to
is.
say, you could run into that, I guess is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
we could, the box a lot of times, there's a diagnostic that the controller can run. And he can use a millivolt clamp to try to figure out where those problems are. We're probably looking to see, do we see anything that's wrong? And then, is there a grounding rod there? If we go, there's supposed to, like I said, eight controllers are supposed to have a grounding rod. If we go, you know, 12 or 13 and we don't see a grounding rod, that's an easy way to fix that problem, so that when we do get a power surge, we're not blowing these things out every time and replacing them with $200 a pop.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a much simpler task of just kind of reviewing and identifying and then checking off on the spreadsheet the things that we see. If there is a box that is just full of water or it's just like dunked up, we'll have flags too, or we can just stick the flag in and George can come back at a different time. We can really dig in there. That'll be his box to identify.
Yeah, we do have like a little battery powered sump pump type thing, but it runs on like a Ryobi type battery, so that will only last a couple of boxes. It won't last you too long, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We need to get a portable generator.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a gas powered racing strat, and it's about 4,000 watts. It works great.
Yeah, I thought about that too, like not using trowels, but maybe gloves, and more or less kind of being more gentle digging it out and just doing it that way, but if we could use tools that are more advanced, that'd be good.
Is it possible that we can lessen the amount that we have to check if we know which ones have the good connectors that,
We don't know, that's
That's
what
part of what
we're
we're
waiting
waiting for.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
There may be some area that they were using all the good connectors in and that whole area.
Well, they should have used the proper connectors in the whole place. That's what we're trying to assess is, you know, what they probably actually did. I think what we'll find is that somewhere along the way, they replaced something, they broke something, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna wire, man, I'm gonna use the regular wire. So maybe it's just happenstance that my box happened to have one, but it was a good example. So we'll get a better sense when we dig in there to,
okay. So like I said, I'll put an email out with the details on that, some of the protocols for how we'll go about it, and we'll collect our team together and the dates, and multiple dates, right? Because we're not having to do this in one shot, but we can at least, you know, try and tackle maybe the south end and then north end and, you know, get as much done as we can at a time. Okay, is there anything else, Larry, that, Doug shared?
no, I mean, we spent, a Saturday morning going through, just looking at stuff and took pictures, but, you know, there's a lot of data that we have. I think the most important thing is just to know that, you know, for us to properly get this going, if we have to pull wire, I mean, everybody thinks, hey, there's conduit under the ground, we just pull the wire back, once they get filled with dirt and all that stuff, this could be an expensive, complicated project, you know, $1 million, you know, who knows, we haven't done anything on it, but it could be, but I don't want people to think it's gonna be a $50,000 project to do that, if we have areas that need to be done, because now you're gonna start lifting out, paper brick, drilling in their driveways, I mean, it could be really ugly. So I think just understanding and starting to minimize the need to do a big project like that, will help us a lot. I think that's about it. But Doug seems really nice and very, you know, he knows the system well. I think he's a really excellent resource.
Yeah, I agree.
You think they can do a conduit for it? You know, just basically loop it on the end and just rip out the conduit from one shot, kind of like how they'll pull and replace gas lines out along for like.
Yeah, I'm sure there's ways that you can do it, but they have tried to pull some of the wire back through the conduit and
Well, not the wire, I'm talking yank the whole conduit, because you'll do a conduit for conduit replacement, they do that for gas line and large battery electric. And then they'll use the initial conduit and then just pull flex conduit underneath.
yeah, they can do that, but, you know, it's great. I don't know anything.
I don't know if they can, I'm just curious, I think it's what was that?
Well, but that project's a ways off, because quite frankly, we can't afford it today.
Okay. Did he help you kind of identify other numbers like that are gonna be considered for the reserve or anything like that? For these particular costs, or was that not part of the conversation?
No, I mean, the only thing was we want to plan in a reserve study for the $100,000 for the pump within the next few years. And then we've got, I think we put $20,000, 20 or 30,000 for maintenance. So there's a wet check.
Yeah.
He's got labor for wet check, and then there are supplies for fixing things that he runs into, right? When the guys cut off, okay, you know, you gotta replace them, or, you know, something goes wrong, or, you know, I mean.
Or the controller gets fried or
Yeah,
something?
that's really the big one. I think that's, I said, how do we solve this problem? He goes, grounding, properly installed grounding. It's okay, let's figure out that problem. So that may have saved us a bunch of money.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and move on. So next one, these are, two projects that are coming up quickly here. So Advanced Mulch, has been our chosen vendor for common area mulching. And they are going to begin the end of this month, actually on the 25th. And that's exciting because we haven't really seen new mulch in this community in a while. And with all the work that's being done, I think it's just going to be a little bit of a cherry on top, the way things are looking. So just to let those know who aren't aware, we decided to go with black mulch this time. Believing that it is going to be a nice contrast for the greenery that is all around our community. And it will kind of age well versus the other option, which was red, that tends to look a little outdated and faded much sooner, especially with a lot of sunlight. Also, black may end up kind of like looking kind of like currently have, which is brown. So if we decide at one point we wanna switch to brown, it's much easier to do that with black mulch underneath than it is to do with red mulch underneath. So we took a lot of things into consideration and believe that this is the best path moving forward with common area mulching. We're doing it right now once a year. And so, we'll get to see kind of how it turns out, after the 25th. And if it looks good and we're happy with the service, there is an opportunity. I spoke to Eric, there's a business manager. They're considering creating a special where they'll hold price for 2025 if they can start to book out their year in advance. So we say, yes, we like what you guys did, we want to do this again by this point. They can lock us in at that rate, which would be a really great deal because things are only getting more expensive. So something to consider, but we're gonna have to wait and see how it all goes first. In addition to that, they have the ability, they were one of the only vendors that had this ability or would be willing to do it. But we can get a group discount through them for mulching our private properties. So the way in which we would do that is they need to get 1 truckload per color. That's about what they average out to 25 homes. It was like, I think 2.5, 3 yards per home. And it worked out to about $125 a home. So you can do your own math and go to Home Depot and do all the labor and all that stuff and work out what those numbers would be. But I don't think it's gonna come close to $125 to have a company come in and mulch your property. With nice and mulch.
You're saying that they would do the labor as well?
Yeah, all in, $125.
Now that's just wood though, right? That's not, like cypress blend or cypress.
No, it's not like they're your high-end mulches, it's not rubber mulch.
Well, no, I know.
I mean, they could probably do rubber mulch, you can get 25 homes that wanna do more of a high-end mulch, I'm sure they can do something like that, but. For this particular service, they have the multiple options, I think it's best to kind of consider what might work, in, comparison to what else is out there in common areas, so we might limit it to, let's say, whatever, I don't know if we have limitations in our documents for mulch colors,
No.
but the options are like brown, black, red, blonde, I think. So, but 25 homes have to have the same color for it to be a truckload. So what we're gonna do is, like I said, we're gonna see how the service goes. If we like it, then we'll put it out there to the community, what this option is. We would have to collect that minimum amount and the payments, in bulk before we can place the order. All those homes will be on the list and they will come out and take care of all those homes, and that's how it works. So that's what we have available to us. Nope.
No, we would have to collect the money,
Yes.
so we would have to create like a separate income geo for specifically for the mulch, so we could see that evened out and that the same.
This is
thing
gonna be
again,
external budget, right? It's direct
Yeah, it
cost.
would be a pass-through charge anyway, so it would break even.
Yes. Is that, what are the consequences if somebody does?
We would collect the money first.
That's a great question.
Yeah, we would pay the pay first.
That's a great question. Yes, there's front and back.
Yeah, we had asked about the whole yard when we did the drive-through.
Right, we did, yeah. Good question. Yes, so it's all areas that would get mulch.
We did double check and confirm, but when we did do that drive-through, we asked about the front and back. And you guys were worried about the bigger lots, but really the landscaping, even on the bigger lots, it ends up being very similar with a big enough difference.
So you would be paying for, like, even in the front, the mulching there.
Yeah, it would be all the beds at your house.
Right. Yeah, I'm okay with it, just want to talk about it.
So, yeah, that's that. Okay, last item for open items, Randy's holiday light. So, we have an install date for October 19th. And then the turn on date for the lights is gonna be November 1st, so. October 19th is over a month from now. So we have a month to accomplish the tree trimming, which you can see that's definitely gonna work out for us, being able to try and start this week, if not next week. So we got the dominoes lined up, which is perfect. Randy's Holiday Lighting was our chosen vendor, you know, Tony helped tremendously on finding us what would be the best vendor to move forward with, price, quality of service, reliability, and all of that. And even have a little bit of a different design that's gonna be set up this year, something a little nicer, a little grander, and even more lights are involved in this. Now, there's caveats to it, so we can get all these lights up, they're gonna look beautiful, but if they don't turn on, it doesn't matter. So the one problem, and it's in the new items, so I'm just gonna jump right into new items, is we need an electrical repair vendor. We had one lined up, there was an issue, we had an accident. He has been kind of able to us in conversation, but he's opted out altogether. And we are looking to find a new vendor. Tony, do you want to speak on where we are in this process?
We've had, I think, a total of 5 vendors out.
Yeah.
We received 3 bids. The one we selected dropped out. We had 2 additional vendors that provided inspections. Only one submitted the bid, and we're reviewing that tomorrow.
Yeah, so we're gonna compare the newest one to the other two. We had, downfall of the other two, and why we had selected the vendor we selected originally was because he was an online price, this was the cap, the most that he would charge us for all the repairs he was doing, whereas the other ones were by the hour, wouldn't really know what it was gonna even out to. The last one that was submitted was the same thing as what Dustin had done, an online price, so we're gonna go through and go line by line to make sure that we have everything covered, and then compare them, send them to the board. But we're probably better off if we can doing that online price, because with my fear with that, you know, pay as you go kind of situation is how long is it gonna take? They're not really, the other vendors weren't able to, or weren't willing to do the in-depth kind of exploratory work that like Dustin had done, which is helpful because we do a lot then once he did his, and he did it as part of doing it all in. Unfortunately, it had fallen through, but that would be our better bet, just so we know there's a lot of electrical issues there, and I'm worried about what we can find. And so we're gonna be a little smart, hopefully at least have a recommendation. At this point, we brought up so many vendors, and there's only so many electrical vendors to choose from that would be able to come out and do these proposals for us without charging us that hourly rate to come in.
Yeah.
So, and we're on a strict timeline.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah, so the goal would be to have all the repairs done before November 1st, ideally, right? It doesn't have to be done before the lights go up, it has to be done before they go on. So we're gonna work diligently, that's basically the final project to really get taken care of in all of this, and once it's accomplished, we checked off all our boxes this year.
Danny, does the vendor, the lighting vendor, have a way to test the lights without any electrical there, and do they have their own generator to make sure that, otherwise, you need to have to put them up if the electrical fix, and then they don't work for,
When they don't look good, but
Yeah. I imagine, I think it was the electrical vendors that were determining
Yeah.
what those problems were that exist currently while they were out there sort of set.
No, he's like, you know, like actual, like, so when we don't put them up on our house, Karen plugs in all the light strands.
Yeah.
And make sure all the bulbs light, they're all.
yeah, we have no electrical, we just gotta make sure that they have a way to test them before they walk out.
Yes.
They're gonna be new lights anyway going on, not that there can't be something wrong with them, but they're not reusing, that's the part, that's why. It's not good to buy your own lights, because they inevitably get cut, they don't wear very well with the weather. So I'm not worried so much about the lights going, not that it couldn't happen, there could be something wrong with the light. But it's usually an electrical issue, when something doesn't turn on, I don't, we could ask. And hopefully we get done well before.
But that's, no, I get what you're saying there, you wanted them to
Just
come
come in one
out.
at the top of
If
the
you don't
tree.
test them and they leave,
Right.
they'll not on the board.
So,
That's the way it goes.
well, they're setting them up on the 19th, and we want them to go on the 1st, so yes, we're gonna have to get them to confirm all is working. And we're ready to go.
Maybe the generator.
Right.
There's some way, we're just gonna make sure that we check that box.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we can do a tester, like won't they do a practice turn on?
No, they would normally do that when they were installing, but if we don't have the electrical fix, if we get the electrical fix before they came, we'd be fine.
Yeah.
But we hopefully get it done by then, if not, then they won't be able to test them unless we.
Well, let's get the electrical back before the 19th.
That's who's mine.
Or happens when that,
It's ready, it's ready, I think.
So, no, who's buying the lights though, so it's their lights?
Yeah, we don't buy anything.
Okay, well then, so It's in their contract that once we plug it in, if it's proven that we have a good electrical system, they have to come. and
Yeah, they would
plug it.
tell replace it, it's just what, to Larry's point, it's something to have to turn on, and then one tree's not working at the 3 or so, we're halfway up.
We can mention, we can call, what's his name, Lewis? We can call Lewis and just mention to them that there may be some issues with the.
Yeah, well, they knew anyway, because we said that at the beginning, when we did the walkthroughs, that we were waiting on some electrical repairs. We could ask them, if not, even if we try to find out one generator source or own testing, but they would come back if we get done before that turn on date.
And the guy that fell through, did you give you guys an estimate on how long it would take him to do this project?
4 days.
Yeah,
Okay, so if they're gonna, the light people are coming in 4 weeks, we could still find somebody who could do this.
Yes. Correct. And it may be that we have to go with one of these other options that is hourly, in order to accomplish the goal. Quite full there. But we're working to not do that, so, we'll just continue to push on that one. Okay. Another one with Tony here is a work order review, so we have a new system, it's fairly new, I mean, Courtney just attested to the fact that more and more people are placing work orders, and it is working. I can tell you just from, what I've seen and talking to Courtney, that people have found it quite easy to place work orders. And I don't know the comparison before, but I know that work orders are being placed and they're not, what are they?
I think having the app helps too, the fact that you can do it from anywhere versus trying to remember what your login is and going home to your computer versus you doing it while you're out in your yard and you're seeing something.
And phone will remember your login. Mine, I just basically log in, it populates everything and I'm in, I'm good.
Yeah, I can see, it tells me every time someone new registers, and every day I'm seeing a few more people popping up on my little screen that shows me how many people are registering every day. Every day there's more and more people registering for the site.
So Tony and I talked, but I guess you guys were gonna be doing monthly work order meetings.
Yeah, so we were trying to do that with, now it doesn't make so much sense to do with CPM, but him and I could still meet and go through things monthly, and he has access for editing stuff when we're doing the website. So even if it's to help close things out, are we making the notes in time, that sort of thing, me and can still meet monthly or however often we need to talk about, because it may not make sense to meet with LSAO as often now. Since he's not gonna be on site as often with us, but definitely him and I, and maybe more with the contractors, maybe quarterly type thing, we could adjust that as needed.
Yeah, so I think that was the thing, we were gonna try to work out what was the appropriate timeline to do that, but I'll let you guys figure that out. But yeah, I think the new system is helping tremendously with the ability to place work orders. Okay, and the seasonal flowers, I had it on there twice, but basically, that's for finalizing that decision, hopefully tomorrow morning. And then once it's done, they'll have the designs and they will go and install on a scheduled date. Do we know when they would end up doing that? Sometime in October, you said, right?
Well, we asked them by the latest that first week of November, because you wanted the flowers to set in time to be blooming and stuff for the holidays for Thanksgiving, when people have visitors coming in, we want that holiday season, everything to look good. So we told them the last date, first week of November.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Next up, end of year party. So Paul and I just briefly touched on this while we were looking at flowers, but just an idea, and I'm gonna put it out there to some of the other committees, but I think because it's end of year, maybe we can merge all committees, committee members together into one sort of party for all those who are volunteering and doing a lot of great work for our community. And just kind of make it one big shebang. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Sounds good.
Give me a pop up here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we definitely do it here, use our clubhouse and fun.
Do we know how many people are on all the other committees,
Turn the cameras off.
you're talking art, safety,
Yep.
Yeah,
Safety, security, the social rec is
that's the
pretty big,
biggest one, yeah.
but I would put it out, I put it out there recently, that there are some that just have not yet participated, they're in the email thread, but they're not really involved. So asking them to just kind of get involved, whether joining Zoom or, coming to one of the upcoming meetings, but, I can get a final count, and it's also gonna come down to who's available, so we wanna try and find that date, and we'll just stick to it for the majority.
Yeah, cause I think social has like 15 plus maybe, but there's overlap too, like Tony's on our, is on this, like there's overlap between committees as well.
Right. And same with Linda. Right?
Yep.
So Linda kind of, yeah. Okay, so we'll figure that out, but I definitely want to look at maybe, either sometime beginning of December, before the holiday stuff really kicks in, or end of November, not on the same weekend as Thanksgiving, something like that.
Thanksgiving is the last weekend in November.
Then the weekend before.
I would suggest a weekday, comes in the weekend.
Okay, yeah, good one.
You can do it Friday, the 20th of November.
Okay.
Put my birthday.
Okay, well, I'll talk about a couple of dates, maybe 2 or 3. And we'll make it happen. Forgot to put it on there, but I wanna also plan the vendor luncheon.
Yeah, we're looking tight on funds though, so we might have to make it like a new year, or into our next budget year. I think we might have to make it like a welcome to the start of the new year, we're excited to do another year service with you, kind of part, we're gonna sell it that way.
Okay.
Just cause, like, I mean, you saw the social budget, we're already out pretty much, and so we're gonna have to be tight with the holiday events for the residents. And so we just don't really have anywhere else to pull it from, so I think that's gonna have to be a start of the new year kind of celebration.
Okay. Yeah, and we can do the whole volunteer thing for our party and pop up. I think that'd be good. All right, so the question I had was, do we do one more meeting this year? I know we're not doing quarterly, but do we do want to sort of finalize everything once it's all said and done, like once the mulch is done, once the holiday lights have turned on, it's a success, like we can kind of look back on the year. We could also do it, just do the first quarter kickoff for next year, similar to the luncheon in a sense, where we do a kind of a look back in 2024 in 2025. Now, I don't know what makes sense for everyone. I know it gets hectic around the holidays, so to try and do another meeting doesn't always make sense. What do you guys think? Maybe just push that also into say January, our first meeting. Yeah. Okay. So let's do that. We'll do a little bonus sort of kickoff meeting in January, and then come like end of March, April, we can do our first quarter meeting. Does that sound good? Okay, cool. All right, and then Zoom. So I think we had some people pop in and out, but ultimately, it's a recording tonight. But I do think we're gonna be able to test it out a little bit more tomorrow with the social and rec meeting. I already have some confirmation of people who are going to participate on it. I still have a feeling that things are going well for landscaping, so nobody needs to get involved. Kind of what I've chopped it up. Yeah, I kind of want to put it out there just to ask and see, is that really what's happening? Does everybody feel like it's all going well and there's no problems? But usually I think it's piecemeal. It's like it's kind of like a personal property issue that ends up being a work order, and that's work. We're dealing with those as they come, so it's like maybe that's what it is.
I'd love to know what some of the work orders are.
Well, I'll tell you, one for mine, for example, is, and I know part of it was CPM was probably trying to keep within the budget, is those guys are flying really fast on their lawnmowers. And apparently nobody tells them that they should not point the chute towards the mulch beds. And so they were filling my mulch beds up with cut grass and then coming back and occasionally getting most of it blown out. And so I have to, but they did it 24 hours after I redid my mulch bed with cypress mulch. And I happened to be standing out front, I came home early and I saw them doing it, and so I grabbed the supervisor and I went, "Well, fix it," and his face just went white. And ever since then, I have gotten very good results.
Yeah, mowing is hands down most of the work orders. The huge bulk of anything coming through is gonna be mow related, unfortunately, because they're going quick, they're trying to get things done quickly, and get done within 2.5 days to get out of here, which means they're going too quick and they're making mistakes, or hitting something on accident, hitting, and landscape edging, blowing the mulch or the grass where they shouldn't go into the mulch, or not blowing things out appropriately. That's more, any of our CPM work orders, most of them, I would say easily 80% are gonna be mow related in some way, shape or form. Trim crew is pretty good, we hardly get any trim related, we get some every once in a while with palms. Because either the crews didn't realize it's within their reach of the contract rate, or because it really is too high, they legitimately did do it, but couldn't, so every once in a while we get the trim work orders. And then, outside the CPM, we get, well, with both of them, we get weed work orders, so especially with CPM, they only come through once a month, so when we get like heavy, like we'll get a slew of work orders probably for weeds over the next couple of weeks, because they're only spraying once a month, but now when we get all this rain, they're gonna be popping up everywhere in all the beds, and so we get those too. But most of them, the legitimate work orders are the ones.
Are people, having extra work orders where they pay for services? Does that happen
Sometimes, yeah, people do put in work orders for extra things that they want done, either trees or landscaping, like removed or trimmed up more than they're supposed to be, or in the back, if they want stuff done. We do get those here and there, not a ton, but we do get them.
Looks about it. Anybody have any thoughts, questions they wanna add on? No? Great. All right, that was another good meeting. Thank you all very much, and we'll be in touch shortly about the irrigation survey.
Yep.
All right.
Now just let me know, and I got my generator, and it's gas powered, so you don't need a long winter.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm available too.
Huh?